Всім доброго дня! Мене звати Олена Бекриньова, я директорка фонду родини Богдана Гаврилишина. І сьогоднішній наш ефір з дуже цікавим гостем, швейцарцем із паном Дірком Лустігом. Hi, Dirk!
Доброго ранку!
Ми починаємо наш традиційний Responsible Talks. Це формат зустрічей із цікавими людьми, які мають досягнення в професійній сфері, але при цьому демонструють відповідальну поведінку. І цей формат також заснований на декларації відповідальності людини Богдана Гаврилишина. Сьогодні у нас в гостях Dirk Lustig, і ми будемо говорити англійською мовою, тому я переключаюся на англійську. Будь ласка, приєднуйтесь до нас, задавайте запитання. So, today we have Dirk Lustig, the guest of our Responsible Talks format. And let me introduce Dirk to you. Except of the fact that Dirk Lustig is for 25 years lives in Ukraine. He's also an entrepreneur, a volunteer, and an active rotarian. So chair of the Rotary Peace Building Committee and president of the Kiev Multinational Rotary Club. The topic for our discussion today is about socially important initiatives and volunteering. But maybe, Dirk, we can start with your story of how it happened that you live in Ukraine for 25 years already. Being a Swiss guy, yeah? What made you come to Ukraine, and why did you decide to stay here for such a long time?
Thank you very much, Olena. I will try to keep this brief. To start with, I think that makes my story even weirder. I don't have any Ukrainian family background, because so many people think that I'm a third generation Ukrainian or whatever. I have German roots. I was born in Geneva, and I was set to have a beautiful, boring Swiss life. I started in a brilliant way, a brilliant career at the World Economic Forum, and everything. I was the youngest member of the board at the forum at that time, and everything changed into something different. Already in '92, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we had the idea to invite all the new presidents, the presidents of the new countries, to Davos. And we close to randomly split the countries, and I inherited Uzbekistan, Belarus, and Ukraine. So all what you see today, it's all the fault of the first president of Ukraine, Leonid Kravchuk, because Kravchuk was head of the delegation in Davos, and I, as we call it, babysitted him. And we had the very first Ukrainian dinner on that Saturday in Davos, and after President Kravchuk poured me in a couple of glasses of white wine, at the end he said, "Why do I explain you how fantastic Ukraine is? You need to see it with your own eyes." And as we have here a director of the World Economic Forum, let's agree here and today to have the first mini Davos in Kiev. And of course, I thought it was a brilliant idea. So we shake hand. We did some nice official photos on the first mini Davos in Ukraine. When I explained this to Schwab, he thought that I was taking drugs. So he was not so far from this. But of course, I promised. So we had to do it. So in June '92 already, we did the very first mini Davos in Kiev. And this is the moment when I met for the first time Bogdan Gavrilishin, because we needed a moderator, and I don't even remember how it came. Someone told me that there is this gentleman who has Ukrainian roots, who has some idea about Ukraine and who was living in Geneva, who might be a good moderator. So we met in Geneva with Bogdan Gavrilishin. And I don't know, it was like normally you have these flashes between men and women, but we had this flash when we first time met. It was like we knew each other since ages, and we had been in contact from this very first coffee moment until a couple of weeks before he left us. So Bogdan Gavrilishin was the first moderator of this mini Davos, And then to make this story short, it went totally chaotic. It was absolutely unmanageable. I thought that I was an experienced conference organizer. I understood after doing Ukraine that I knew nothing about anything. So we had to bring in a telecommunication truck from Switzerland, a full telecommunication truck, because we couldn't even make normal phone calls from Kiev. We rented some industrial Xerox machines from Poland to make them come. So
it was totally international event, right?
Absolutely.
Like real Davos.
I think we had 200 participants, and it was chaotic. It ended up nicely as usual in Ukraine. We had to improvise the program non-stop. And at the end, Kravchuk called me to Bankova and said, "No, how was it?" And I told him, "Mr. President, first of all, my parents gave me a more or less decent education. And second, you're the president of a country. So I cannot tell you what I really think." So he said, "Was it that bad?" I said, "To be very honest, it was worse." So he said, how can I make myself apologize for this? And he was like, "Okay." So it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He goes like, "Let's have a reception in Mariinsky Palace." At that time, I had no idea what was Mariinsky Palace. He said, "It's my presidential palace. So I invite you all for a reception, and I will be there, and I will make closing remarks." So we speak about 3 o'clock. And I said, "But when you want to do it? The meeting finishes at 6. He said, "No, it's 6:30. So it's the first time when I saw that when someone wants in Ukraine, everything is possible. So we really had this crazy reception in Mariinsky Palace with everything. I mean, chandeliers, 20 meters buffet and everything. And everybody ended up being very happy. And that's when a Swiss businessman came and said, "Listen, I make this story short because otherwise we would be at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock and the meeting's over." So he said, "Why don't you come to Ukraine and make business?" And one of the persons to whom I told this story was Bogdan Hervelishin. And of course, you can imagine his reaction. He said, "This is a brilliant idea. Do it." I said, "But I don't know anything about Ukraine. I don't speak a word." I still don't speak a word. How I should do it? He said, "Just let yourself go. Dream big and everything. Believe in yourself. Believe in the country, and everything will be wonderful." So that's how the whole story started. I left Geneva in March '93. At that time, with 7 other people from Geneva, because it became like some very international and interesting project. We had a guy from North Africa, we had a Brazilian with us, we had some Swiss. So we really sold everything in Switzerland, packed our cars, and went to Ukraine. And of course, after 1 year, the only person who still was in Ukraine, it was me. So most probably because I'm blonde, it takes me more time to understand that things are difficult. So
now you are in Switzerland right now, yes?
Yes, now I'm in my parents' place, who since 27 years don't understand what I'm trying to do. So they never moved from Geneva. This is the kids' room of my sister. So
You have a wonderful flag.
Yes, of
on
course.
your background.
Wherever I go in the world, I always have Ukrainian prapor with me. I always have also some political message with me. So for all those years, I was walking around whenever I was traveling first with a free Savchenko T-shirt. Then for years with I think I had 6 different free Sentsov T-shirts. And it was my tradition that whenever I travel by car, by plane, or wherever, it is important to send out a message. So I was always walking and traveling always with a free Sentsov T-shirt until last year. And my how you say in my fishka was that when I had a transit anywhere in the world, I would go and check on the board if there were any flights to Russia. And then I would just go with my Sentsov T-shirt and sit among all the passengers boarding for St. Petersburg or Russia. And by the way, Uliana Suprun took up this idea and started to copy me. So I did a couple of pictures because people look at you like if you have some illness, you know. I was sitting with bright stuff, with my free Sentsov stuff. So wherever I go, I always have a political or whatever freedom message with me.
And are these messages are always connected with Ukraine, or
Yes.
they can be some international like message?
No, they could be, but we have so many problems in Ukraine and so many issues that my biggest achievement for the moment in 2014, because I did then 25 years of toy business, and in 2014 I went to the last big toy fair in Hong Kong, and my flight back was canceled to Ukraine. So they rescheduled me with a transit flight through Moscow, what was
Okay.
something quite weird. So I had no choice. It was either this or I got stuck in Hong Kong. So my biggest pro-Ukrainian achievement was that I walked around the international zone at Sheremetyevo Airport with my laptop, and on my laptop I have since 2014 a big sticker, Crimea is Ukraine. So I was holding my laptop in the hand. It was not working because my battery was not working, but I pretend to work on the laptop, and I walked everywhere around Sheremetyevo Airport. Oh, I have the laptop here. I can even show it to you that I'm not telling you stories because the sticker is still on. So here you see
Yes.
Crimea, Ukraine. So I walked around all over Sheremetyevo Airport. The worst was when I passed the security control because you need to take your laptop out. And the guy told me, "Что это?" I said, "Наклейка." Anyway, so I always try when I travel to have a political or whatever freedom, whatever message for Ukraine.
Yes, thank you, Dirk. And this is actually the first question of our discussion for today, the question or the topic of identity and patriotism. So now you're in Switzerland, in the home of your parents, but you have Ukrainian flag on the background, and you've been living in Ukraine for 25 years and transmitting messages important for Ukraine around the world through everything you've done, you've been doing. And maybe you can say some words on how your Swiss identity and or any identity with whom do you identify yourself, and how the issue of patriotism is for you. So how to combine being a Swiss guy and Ukrainian patriot at the same time?
I think things come step by step in any case. So when I started in Ukraine to do business, I had some big dream thinking that you come there, you set up tons of businesses, and then you go back to Geneva, and twice per year you fly over and pick up the money. So life showed that it is a little bit different. So I think the global idea, it depends on your character, on your person. So when you are somewhere, you try to understand the place where you are and to integrate yourself. So when I understood that I would stay a little bit longer, you in any case start to understand what I first thing I do when I go somewhere is I read the history. So I read, I think it was produced in Canada, 1,000 pages book about Ukrainian history. I learned the national anthem, not just the words, but also the text, what it means. So I think when it depends again on your character, it's not just me or Ukraine. There are people in general in life who care, and people who are more passive. So I always put my nose into everything since I was a kid. So and when something seems not like it should be, I protested and I opened my mouth. In college, I had a clash with my teacher, my main teacher, 2 weeks before the exam, because he was a very young teacher and he was inviting girls on his boat, and we thought that this was completely disgusting. I thought we speak about 30 years ago. So I went to him and I told him that he's a dirty pig. And I did this 2 weeks before the final exams. And of course, he did everything that I would not get my matura. But and people told me, you're completely insane. Why you open your mouth now? You can tell him afterwards. I said, afterwards, too late. So I think this is again part of your personal character. I never shut up all my life. When something was not okay, or when I thought that something was not okay, I opened my mouth. So this is one point. The second point again is the integration to where you are. So first, again, I started just but to learn history of Ukraine, specialities of Ukraine, all the standard things, and then somehow my bigger patriotism came up with. I think one of the turning points was the Orange Revolution, because 2 years before we had this Ukraina bez Kuchma, and in Kiev Post was a very interesting article, I think at that time from Brian Boner, who was writing to Ukrainians, dear Ukrainians, why you always expect us foreigners to help you, to fight for you and change things for you. You need to start by yourself. And I thought it was a brilliant article. I asked the girls in my office to copy it 100 times. And then they did, and they all asked me, but why? And I was shocked by this. I said, because it's your country. So you should wish that your country changes, and you need to be the change. We can help you, guide you, support you, but it should be your initiative. So when the Orange Revolution started, the very first day, I don't know, when you stay for a while somewhere, you feel something will happen, and I was sure that something would happen this time. So I was approached by Nasha Ukraina to ask if I can help to monitor the elections, because I have another fishka. I drive around since 27 years with a car in Ukraine with Swiss plates. So they thought that it would be safer for them that I drive around these election places, because they would not dare to stop a guy with a Swiss car. So that was my first physical involvement. And then you understood, in the evening we came on Maidan, and you understood that something, no, I felt something would happen. So the next morning, I did a staff meeting, and we had about 15 people working for us in toy business. And I think that I took a very courageous decision, because you remember it was in November, and I'm in toy business. So I was in toy business. So November, December are the most important months in toy business. That's when you make money, because most of the year you don't earn anything.
Christmas time.
Christmas time, exactly. This is the bingo. So I said to my staff that the office is officially, the work in the office is officially suspended. This was the first Monday at the beginning of Orange Revolution. Said work is suspended. If you don't want, you don't need to come to work. If you want to express yourself or do anything, you are free. If you want to stay at home, then of course come to the office and work. But if you feel that you should do something in your country, then office is suspended. So they didn't understand at all what I was talking about. Then they asked me, what you will do? I said, I will now pack my stuff and go to Maidan. And then they said, can we go with you? I said, no, please. So we all 15 went to Maidan. And I have to say that most of my people stayed on Maidan. So Maidan was, this first Maidan was for me very intensive. We followed up by doing this train of friendship when we drove 4,000 kilometers to the south, to Crimea and to Donetsk with our cars. And it was, by the way, the only year when I missed Christmas at home in Geneva, because I'm always the crazy person in the family, but I always promise that at Christmas evening I am home. In 2004, I was not at home, but just returning from this car friendship stuff, and I was on Maidan. So on the scene on Maidan. So it's the only time I missed Christmas. So Maidan definitely got me even more involved into the life of Ukrainians, because the issue was not political. The issue was that you see when you work in Ukraine, all this corruption, all the things that don't work. And then, of course, you want to change also for yourself. It's not just that I'm an altruist who's just also for yourself, because if you were a businessman in the 90s and beginning of 2000, it was very tough. I mean, corruption was tough. You couldn't have any week of normal business. We got trucks with toys arrested by customs, and we were allowed to participate in auction, where we had again to pay some money so that we were the only people who was in this auction. We were called in various organs and had to sponsor from sports zals of police to I don't know what. So I was really touching this corruption and all these issues and problems very closely. So with the Orange Revolution, you have the hope that you can contribute to change something. And the other thing was to tell to Ukrainians that if you want to change something, go in the street, but you cannot send them in the street and stay at home yourself. So that's when I got very much active. I remember also one thing, I was living in the center at that time, very last story. And I remember in one evening show on Fifth Channel, some politician from Yushchenko said, please, to all our fans, because there were cars that were damaged at night because they had some orange symbolica on themselves. Please, at night, take off your symbolica, your flags and everything. We don't want you to get your car destroyed. And for me, this was, I always do exactly the opposite of what normal people do. I had my car parked very safely in Dom Offizier. I went at 2300, I went down, took up my car, parked it on the trottoir on Grushevskovo, and put anything orange that I had at home on it. And the next day, I went to ask for even more orange decoration to give this message. Never be afraid, because when you start to be afraid, you already have lost. The worst they can do is to destroy your car. And so this activism started with the Orange Revolution and trying to explain to Ukrainians that they should care. And if they want change, they need to open the mouth and fight for the change. No one is going to do it for them.
Yes, this is actually what you're speaking about, is the point where your own inner responsibility to the community where you live in starts, right? So for you, as I understand it now, it was more less about patriotism, but more about social justice. Like you were always defending the social justice and feeling these points where the justice suffered somehow, and you, because of your character, was always in the points or in the geographical places where this injustice was the most vivid. And in Ukraine, yes, the Orange Revolution was the first really big wave of the citizens' support and of them showing that they are not indifferent to what is happening in the country. And the slogans on Maidan was for justice, freedom, truth. So very general things, not about money or any like other guarantees, but about these very simple points. I know that you were, and still you are, and you were active during the war in Donbass, and you supported as volunteer the soldiers. You have been there for many times. Can you share your experience of how it started for you, and maybe even from the Revolution of Dignity, and step by step to the war in Donbass and your role in that process?
I will start with one more sentence regarding Revolution of Dignity, because when this started, of course, the first evening when Naim asked people to come to Maidan, I went to Maidan. But then for the first, let's say 1 week, I was trying to push young people to go out in the street. Because I said, we did our revolution with the orange one in 2004. Now it's your turn. Because at that time I was already a very active rotarian. We'll speak a bit later about this. And we have young rotarians called rotaractors, and they were constantly asking us to make some half-faked invitation for them to get visas for Europe. So I was telling them, bloody hell, you have the chance to go towards Europe. So fight for it again. It's your country, it's your future. Fight, go out. So I was pushing. And at the very beginning, the first evenings, we were always meeting the old 2004 team, and there was a very soft start reaction from students. And then finally on that Thursday, students came out from KPI, from everywhere, like massively. And then they got beaten up. I was on the square when Berkut stormed it on that night. It's a miracle until today that I didn't get hit on that night, but and then I got again totally involved in the Revolution of Dignity, because you push young people to go, and then they do the move, and then they get beaten up. So of course, then it became again somehow personal for me, and I spent another 3 months on Maidan, on Grushevskova, on close to each spot that you could be. I have the art to be where I should not be. I don't know why, but this is my nature, probably also. So Donbass started again. Most of things in my life happened randomly. Donbass started that a Swiss and a German, two famous journalists, found me on barricade on Grushevska and didn't understand why a Swiss guy would help people to make Molotov cocktails or whatever. So they got interested why I'm doing this. So I tried to explain them the whole stuff, that I want finally to work in peace in Ukraine, and I want Ukraine to become European and move in the right direction, justice system, etc., etc. So to make it short, they wanted to go to Crimea, and until they finally decided that they were ready to go, Crimea was locked off. So they said, but what shall we do? I said, guys, if you want, we can go to Donbass. That's the next thing that will fly around our ears. And at that time, nothing had happened. So they told me, why you think so? I said, I know this country. So we drove with my car with Swiss plates. And we to make this story short, we ended up in the first mega pro-Russian demonstration in Lugansk. And I managed to turn. First, they wanted to beat us up. We got scratched and beaten and bitten and everything. So we managed to calm the people down, and we were introduced to the first separatist leadership in Lugansk. And they said, you need to meet our friends and whatever brothers in Donetsk. So after Lugansk, we went to Donetsk, and there suddenly we got involved very much in the war in Donbass. And then with each trip, for me personally, it became weird and frightening to see how artificially you can build up a conflict. I never had lived something like this, because you understood that people start to really get pushed up among each other, and you really saw how this conflict somehow was built up artificially. So I did more than 40 trips, meanwhile, to the Donbass war zone until 2017. I could go also to the occupied part. And for me, the main aim of those trips was somehow to understand what was going on in the head of the people, and try to figure out if there's any solution. So there was this stuff to try to keep the dialogue because there was each time a different phase of this conflict. At the beginning, people were very excited and thought that they will change something, especially after what had happened in Crimea. Then suddenly the real war started, and I would say most of the people got very frightened. Then somehow people start to get back to life as usual. And today I would say that many people, they are totally lost. They don't know anymore to whom they belong. They don't know anymore whom they are.
Mm-hmm. I remember that story about the school on the separated from the city, yes, by the river on the other side, on the occupied territory, and people being afraid of saying that fact, because in that case they won't be able to go to school, and many stories like that.
So this is when one of the reasons of my trips there was to understand and try to figure out how you can fix this. This is also why I became somehow a peace builder now, because I try to learn and understand from conflicts in the rest of the world, because in some countries people overcame situations that somehow are tougher and rougher than what we have in the Donbass now, and they managed to live together again now. So, and this works only if you understand what is the key to make people again, to start with, very simple thing, just talk to each other. So what is not the case now. And of course, when you're there and you see all the tragedies, then you try to become more active as a volunteer. So you help people, you help also the army, we supported a lot. You help everybody who suffers from the conflict. So you change again. I didn't sell any toy anymore since December 2013. That was my last toy activity. And then more you go and more you see tragedy, more you change also your personal life. I understood. I was never very materialistic, but I understand that so many things that I thought that I don't need them. And you start to put other priorities. So you understand you don't need to change your mobile phone twice per year, because otherwise you're not cool. Yeah. So you understand that you have 1 billion times too much clothes than you ever can put. So etc. 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 So when you see the amount of help needed, and again, I think it's a question of your personal character. You understand that you want to help. So and there's more places where help is needed than your energy can ever do. So we helped. There's a German guy who did. He called it theater for displaced people. He tried to help people who were touched by the war, and also the kids, to overcome through theater play the experiences that they had. It's a project in Kiev, so I thought this was brilliant. So we try to help very much for those people. We help very much also Armia SOS, because Armia SOS we're helping and civilians and army and positions and volunteers. And then with Rotary also, we have one project. We go for St. Nicholas Day. We go along the front line to all the schools, because again, when you live in your normal life in Kiev, you don't understand what is going on the front. I mean, when you go last November for the St. Nicholas Day, so we give gifts, small gifts, to about 1,000 kids along the front line. This we do with Rotary. We went for the first time to Krimsky. It is difficult to imagine that we are in Europe. It's a village that is on the other side also of the river. The only real access was lost by Ukraine already since years. So the people are kind of like locked up in an enclave. They're shelled close to each evening. And then you have people, teachers, who are still trying to teach something to kids. There's still 400 or whatever people living in Krimsky. And when you see this, then you forget about your day-to-day life. I was at one moment close to go back to toy business, because I thought this conflict is going to last for I don't know when. Then you go again to the front, and you understand I cannot go back to day-to-day life when things are so bad next door, because in Kiev you don't understand, but they are still their position shelled each. We spend the night in Zolote and Svitlodarsk. You hear shelling each night. So again, it's the character of the person that you feel that you want to make this little job to change something.
Yes, in our previous responsible talks, we had as a guest Angelika Rudnicka. Yes, very popular Ukrainian television star, and she was also as the advisor to the Minister of Culture for 3 or 4 years in a row. She coordinated this artistic trips to the east of Ukraine with concerts to soldiers, and she personally was also one of these activists who visited the eastern Ukraine territories very often, gave her concerts for free, and it was something that was needed, and she personally felt that that was her role, and that was her personal impact in that very situation, something that she could do with her talent, with her time, to help the situation and to solve it. But not all of the singers and artists and cultural activists, so to say, felt the same. Yeah, so people have these two big groups: those who support and understand what is happening, and those who live happily far from that territory and don't actually understand what the severance of the situation is. And yes, probably this is the point where the Swiss voluntary movement and Ukrainian volunteers differ. I'm sure that you were a volunteer in Switzerland too before your movement, or before you moved to Ukraine. So how it differs and how it feels in Switzerland to be a volunteer and in Ukraine?
Just one word to Angelika Rudnicka, because I know her since '93, and we bumped into each other once. She did a concert next to Svitlodarsk when it was still very hot there, and it
Yes.
was fabulous because they do not just come and sing. They brought all their costumes and everything, and so they made really in the middle of dirt and trash. They did an extremely long concert, and she's very close to the people, so she didn't refuse any selfie or whatever. And we stayed afterwards. They left. They created a fabulous impact, and it gives you so much motivation. But as you said, unfortunately, not enough artists do this. But they are. Not long ago, Kristina Panasiuk did this from Rivna, тоже fantastic lady. She's doing a lot also for the soldiers. Now, volunteering between Switzerland and Ukraine. I would say the main difference that in Switzerland, you need to really search for where you can do something. So when we were in students' time, I had a very close friend who was very much in some churches, organizations. So with him, we did some projects like, especially because no one is somehow really poor or whatever in Switzerland and needs really help. You have problems with loneliness, with people without families. So what we was doing regularly is at Christmas night, we were making hot wine and sausages for people who have no families, not just people who live in the street, because we have very little of them also in Switzerland. But it was more for also foreigners who were lost a bit in Switzerland, to give them a kind of like Christmas celebration. So this is something you can do in Switzerland. But even taking care of old people, this is a project we did in Ukraine now with COVID-19. You don't really have this issue in Switzerland because you have such a fantastic social system. When you cannot move yourself, you have a nurse who comes 3 times per day if she has to, feeds you, washes you, and most of it is part of your social security system. So in Switzerland, you need to search for help. So, for example, I remember when we were kids, we were supporting financially some orphans in South Korea. And it was kind of like randomly. I don't remember. Maybe someone said, "Would you like to support?" You received a flyer by mail, support orphans in Korea, and then you're like, "Yes, finally a project." So you help, but in this case, you don't have this personal relation because we never saw these orphans in Korea. So we send them money 3, 4, 5 times per year. Or, as I said, we make sausages and hot wine for lonely people at Christmas. But so in Switzerland, the projects you use to help, it's more projects abroad. Like, for example, we are very friend of a Rotary Club in Geneva. They, I like them very much. They did a fabulous project. They bought cows for some villages in Kyrgyzia. So this is globalization.
Oh.
Can you imagine a club in Geneva that do not have any member from Kyrgyzia? They again, through contacts, they ended up that they got approached by some organization in Kyrgyzia who wanted to give cows to villages so that people become more autonomous. So the Swiss club is not doing any project in Switzerland, but they're buying cows in Kyrgyzia, or they help very much mine victims in Afghanistan. This is also. So this is volunteering in Switzerland. Switzerland is in such a good shape that except somehow loneliness, there's very little that really needs your help. In Ukraine, you need help for everything. And this is one thing that is difficult for me with the war now, because before the war, we had already worked up to here to support various projects in Ukraine. We helped because even without the war, Ukraine needs help everywhere. We helped in Kiev. There's a kids oncology hospital, so we supported with toys this Kiev oncology hospital. I mean, see these kids who all have rak and are in such a bad shape. You want to help. Our Rotaract helped a home of old people in Ukraine. This was very traumatizing for me because I remember my grandparents, when they were finally in pension age, they were traveling, they were making cruise, they were making some coffee meetings with other babushkas and dedushkas. And there I went for, when I first time went to this home for old people outside of, and we speak about Kiev, we don't speak about the deepest region somewhere, we speak about Kiev. You had
Yeah.
4 people in one room, 4 old people in one room who before, of course, did not know each other. The only things that they're allowed to have, each of them has one tumbichka and half of a shkaf. So you have beds, tumbichkas, and in the between the beds, one shkaf. Each of the old persons gets half of a shkaf, and then the other 2 beds with a tumbichka. And this is all what a person has to finish his life. Yeah, close to no intimacy. You can never be by yourself. No programs. They have a TV. So, and when you speak with those people, you are getting so depressed because you think, what you do? In the morning we wake up, we have breakfast, then we go back to the room. Then most of them cannot read even because their eyes are not good. Then they go and watch TV. Then they again have food. Then again they go to the room, have a map. Then again they have food. And this is their life. There's no activities. There's no anything. When there's guests like from Rotary, then of course we bring them some dancing and stuff like this. But this is like this. So what I want to say is that in Ukraine there are so many places. We went to some orphaned homes at that time, still in the Donbass before the war, where kids were sleeping on beds without mattresses. I mean, there was more sleeping on the metal. They put some like some divipeli whatever on it, but they didn't even have mattresses in this home for orphans. So in Ukraine before the war already, there was billions of projects that needed support. You have more projects and capacities to help everybody, whether it's old people, young people. I mean, it's endless. The attitude of Ukrainians and Swiss is very different. If Swiss are somehow organized, and for example, these Korean kids, you know that each second month you send them some money. Ukraine is fabulous because you have this ruch, this crazy moment of solidarity, especially when the situation is lost. Ukrainian as people, more it is hopeless, more Ukrainians are active, like it was in 2014 when suddenly everybody wanted to defend the country and help and support and just go without any education, risking life and losing life. So and you had this fantastic patriotism when each single bridge or even each bench was painted in blue and yellow. But Ukrainians somehow, maybe it's not a critic, but somehow Ukrainians maybe don't go until the end. If a person in Switzerland or in Germany would go until the end, in Ukraine it's this very intensive boom when everybody collects money, even if you don't have money. I mean, even in Maidan, I remember babushkas bringing bread to us on Maidan, and you understand that this babushka doesn't have money to buy a second or third bread. So you have this incredible solidarity that you don't have on that level in Europe, at least not in Switzerland. You barely say hi to your neighbors, you know. In Ukraine, it's much warmer, and you have this, again, crazy openness and ready to help, but you don't go until the end. Like now, you see already there's very little that is done on the front because the war is in the 7th year. So you don't feel anymore this need. With COVID again, we helped with Rotary. We helped an organization called Starenki, who is delivering food to old people in Kiev and in a couple of other cities, also before COVID. But during COVID, suddenly again, tons of volunteers helped to deliver with us. Tons of volunteers brought some products and everything because it's COVID, yeah? So everybody's trying to buy sanitizers, masks, help old people. But now that the figures are somehow much higher than in spring, you don't have any more this. So Ukrainian, it's more intensive, but maybe not so sustainable than.
Yes, maybe it's because every time the new challenge comes, the new sharp situation appears, and people have to react on the new call, so to say. And of course, psychologically, gets a little bit tired of always defending sharp questions, sharp things. You've mentioned several times the Rotarians already, and as president of Kiev Multinational Club and member of this peace building committee of the Rotary. Maybe some words about this movement in the world. Who are Rotarians and how can they help change the world with this social support for socially important initiatives?
Yeah. So again, one word of personal involvement. Why I went to Rotary, because of course, again, in toy business, we supported many kids projects, but very often with state organizations at that time. And I decided to stop this the day when we received big packages, support packages from Lego to play around, as they had an incredible worth, financial worth. And when we saw the packages that we gave to the government at that time to distribute, because they said it needs to go to government hands, when we saw our packages sold in toy shops in Kherson a couple of months later, this humanitarian aid for kids, we saw it sold in toy shops in Kherson 6 months later. I understood that I don't want to work through someone again. Why I choose Rotary? Because Rotary the organization goes itself to where things are needed. One of my first projects was after the floods in 2008 in Carpathian Mountains. We collected some money and we went to one village and we asked what they needed. We bought one pig, a real live pig, because pig was gone. And we bought on the market 3 full harnesses of chipichkas, because they lost all their chipichkas and other things. So Rotary is very much down to earth. One of the slogans is people of action, because you do the action yourself. To the old people during COVID, we ourselves brought the food packages. We brought sanitizers. Not just my club, all the clubs. We have about 60 clubs in Ukraine. I think all clubs brought sanitizers, masks to the hospital in proper hands. So it's not just like money collected and then half of it is lost somewhere. Rotary in general is a huge organization in the world. It was created 114 years ago in Chicago at the very, very beginning for a very selfish purpose. It was a group of friends who wanted to help each other. So you had like one dentist, one lawyer, one policeman, one whatever, doctor, one salesman. And the idea was that when you need to go to the dentist, you go to your dentist, because you're part of this inner group. And it was called Rotary because each week one of the members was welcoming the other members. So on this Monday, you meet in the dentist's place. Next meeting, you meet in the teacher's place, for example. So, but very, very fast, Rotary started not just to help themselves, but to help community. And of course, first it was a closer community in the cities, in the small villages. And then it started to expand through the world, and you start to have world projects when you help wherever help is needed in the world. And the biggest project of Rotary is End Polio Now. When Rotary decided to help to end poliomyelitis in the world, I think by far more than 100 countries, I think it's about 150 countries were affected. It was in 85, they started in 87, it became like really serious. Today we have 2 countries left. It's and it's only because it's impossible to stop it there because of the war. It's Afghanistan and Pakistan. The third country was Nigeria. Nigeria is polio-free now. And this was done by Rotarians. It means that Rotarians themselves not just bought vaccination, because you can make vaccination for polio, but vaccinated themselves babies and kids, because you need to do it with babies and kids. So Rotary vaccinated more than 2 billion kids in the world over those years to support. So there's 1.2 Rotarians all over the world. And again, you organized in various clubs. Our club is the only English-speaking club in Kiev. So we have a mix of not just foreigners, we have a mix of Ukrainians. Under my presidency, I try to get a lot of young Ukrainians to join us, because youth is the future. We can just offer the guidelines, but youth, as you know, for this I'm so close to the Bogdan Revolution Foundation. We need to push youth. Youth is the future. So Rotarians have incredible resources, but it's all private. There's no government meddling. So whatever we do, for example, in my club also, for example, one of the latest projects, we rebuild a house in Slovyansk. So it is done by us, not by any that we give money to some governmental structure and they do it. we rebuild it. We got contacted by a club in Winona. It's in the States. I don't even know exactly where it is in the United States. They got some Ukrainians visiting last year who are taking care of kids with Down syndrome. So they said they want to help. Americans have much more money than we here in Ukraine. Our club is, by the way, specialized to spend the money of other people. We are very good. We are very good in this. So these people in Winona, they want to collect money and help the Association of Down syndrome kids in Ukraine. And of course, it's not somehow our field, but of course we say, of course we jump on it, because we understood what the problem of Down children is in Ukraine. We understood that it's again one of those crazy problems that no one takes care of in Ukraine. Now finally many of those Down kids stay with their parents. Before, in Ukraine, parents were just giving the kids away when the kid was born with Down syndrome. So now at least there's a thinking, but there's a crazy work to be done to get them into the professional life and help them. So again, it's the globality of Rotary. We help any field. We have 6 areas of help. It's water, it's education, it's women and child, it's peace. That's my baby. Peace and peace building, environment, and I think I forgot one. No. Anyway, we have 6 areas of where efforts are done, and any club in the world can help any country or project all over the world, like my Swiss guys with their cows in Kyrgyzia. Yeah. So now with peace building, my job is to try to find as many clubs in the world who are ready to give money for projects in Ukraine, mainly consequences of the war. But again, the problem is not, by the way, is not necessarily money. The problem is to get the projects done in a solid and sustainable way here in Ukraine. Because everybody, again, this is so Ukrainian also, everybody's doing something, but you cannot ask a club far away in the States, oh, give me 10,000. Yeah, but in fact I need 13, and in 6 months I need another 12. It doesn't work. You need to prepare sustainable projects that explain for what you are doing this, what is the sustainability, where you want to go. And this is one of my functions, is to get Ukrainian projects sellable to the world and push then clubs all over the world to get money for Ukraine. So
yes, and also organizations in Ukraine that can be trusted, that can actually perform that project and lead it to the end. I see that we have several minutes left for the stream today, and some comments from our listeners. Patricia Schmerhun says that she loves your energy and commitment, Dirk. You are a great patriot and model of activism. I agree. And Mariana Ileiko, great experience and story about your life, Dirk. Thank you for your always positive mood. Can you tell a few words on Turkish and story about this? So I know the story, but would love to listen to it again.
Dirkish is in principle something terrible, because I at the beginning I did a big mistake. I never went to some classes to really learn the language like I should. So I pick up everything in the street. So at the beginning it was a mixture of Russian words mixed with English. After the Orange Revolution already, I started to add some Ukrainian component into my language that is called Dirkish. But I'm very ashamed that I never took a real lesson. So I tell you a very funny story. So at the very beginning, the foreigner in the 90s was a god. Yes, foreigner was a god. So no one was ever correcting me anything when I was trying to speak Dirkish, Russian, whatever. So I was just like a parrot repeating what people were saying around me. And in my office, I had close to only ladies. So ladies speak in the feminine part, yeah? And then we did the first Lego festival in Odessa, and our partner there was a big bandit, very big bandit with golden chain and everything. And he was speaking with all the local press about how cool he is and everything. And I needed to go to the hotel. And I was very fresh in Ukraine. I think it was 94, 95. So I wanted to tell him that I need to leave, and he didn't react. So I spoke quite loud that everybody turns ahead. And at that time, I knew that each first name Ukrainian has a short version, like Alexander, Sasha. He was Leonid, and I had no clue what the short version of Leonid is. So I screamed around, Alyona, Alyona, because I thought, I remember it sounded something like this. So I said, Alyona, Alyona, Yaushla. And the whole crowd was dead laughing, and then he came and he half beat me up and said, Yani Alyona, Alyona, Ati Ushla, Aushol. And when I asked him what the difference is, I got a kick in where it hurts very much for men to explain me what the difference was. So, so this is the origins of Dirkish.
Yeah. And what are the best cities and places in Ukraine for you? Just as a traveler.
Of course, I'm a mega super ultra fan of Lviv as a city, but for my upcoming retirement in 25 years, before I was thinking you stay in Ukraine, you make retirement in Switzerland. This I gave totally up. Now a retirement plan goes in the direction of Karpati, because I think that there's nothing nicer than Karpati, and I'm going back to a lot of origin things like collecting mushrooms, learning different herbs, so that you can make tea for different illnesses. So when I have fever, I just use hot malina. So in 50 years, when I will retire, you can find me somewhere in deep Karpati, and I will be extremely happy there.
That's a perfect place for that, but not only for the retirement, but for some recreation and refreshment of your energy level. So 2 minutes before we end, and the last question from me, Trip, maybe you can share with the people who are with us today some tips on how to be an active member of the community where you live, in which you live. So some tips from you as a foreigner, but I don't think you're a foreigner in Ukraine anymore after 25 years.
I think the most important point, and this is, it goes in Ukraine, but it goes wherever you are, you need to care, because unfortunately there are too many people who don't care. They just care about themselves and their little surroundings and their little lives. When you care how you live, what you eat, how you are managed, if you can say like this also, then you become activist and volunteer, because again, the magical word is care. And of course, the Declaration of Human Responsibilities of Bogdan Havlichin is a fabulous help in life, because I think really all aspects are touched on it. One second. This is always what happens when I just take this. Okay, I throw it under the bed. So the most important is to care, and it's not important about in which direction you care. You can try to care for everything, of course, but you can care about the environment. You can care about what you eat, all what you have in this Declaration of Human Responsibilities. By the way, we have very close also in Rotary. Rotary is also a way of living. So we have what we call the four-way test. And I personally try to use this four-way test. It is 4 questions that you should ask yourself when you take a decision, when you do something. The first one, is it the truth? So it's very close to your first declaration. Is it fair to all concerned? Will it help to build friendship and goodwill? And will everybody grow with it? So I think when you have things like the Declaration of Human Responsibilities or the four-way test, then life is easier. But the first important message is you should care, because too many people, they don't care what they eat, they don't care where they are, they don't care how they manage, and then for me life is not interesting. So you need to care, you need to be active, and you need to always try to change things. Also, this is also something I learned from Bogdan Hervelishin. He never stopped to learn and to progress. So
Mhm.
so this is, I think, also a very important message for everybody. Always work on yourself. I always start from the point that I still know nothing, and I always try to add some elements to learn more, to do more. And again, dream big, believe in yourself, believe in Ukraine, believe in youth, і все буде добре.
Все буде добре, це точно. Дякую, Dirk. Thank you, Dirk, very much for joining us today. Thank you for your inspiration and for some very practical advices for everybody who listened to us or watched us today. Of course, our discussion today was dedicated also to the 11th point of the declaration, the responsibility to community, but we managed to talk about all of the other points. Thank you for this wonderful discussion, and thank you for watching our previous responsible talks. We really really happy that we have such supporters as you. And I wish you luck with everything you do in Ukraine and for Ukraine. Thank you, Dirk.
Щиро
And
дякую, слава Україні!
слава Україні, героям слава! До зустрічей в наступних зустрічах Responsible Talks вже найближчим часом. Всім гарного тижня і дня!